Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having an absolutely fantastic day. I am so happy to be back again with the silent minority. And of course, you already know my name is Samori Sykes. With me is Hudson Meadows. Say hello to the people, Hudson.
Whoop, whoop.
We've got a full slate of topics for you today. Hopefully, you all will enjoy the show. We're going to start with T.I.'s son. He had some commentary regarding some things his son is going through. And I had some thoughts. I don't want to be judgmental towards the brother, but I do feel like there's some things we can learn from this. After that, I want to get into the alderman exodus that is happening in Chicago. If you don't already know, roughly, I think about 13 aldermen have already stated that they will not be seeking reelection, and some of them have decided that they're going to run for mayor. After that, we're going to look over one of the aldermen who has confirmed she will not be seeking reelection and is in turn running for mayor, Sophia King. She has an interesting background and record. We're not going to go into a deep dive on it, but I feel like we could talk about her for a few minutes. Let's go ahead and dive right in with King Harris, T.I.'s son. So T.I. came out with the Instagram video a few days ago, basically asking, hey, stop reaching out to me about what my son is doing. Like, I know he's into some crazy stuff. In fact, I believe that if he stays on the path that he's currently on, he's going to go to jail. And I don't need y'all ask me about it. Whatever you are going to say, I should be doing about it. I've already said, done, and talked to all of his people and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. The way he framed this, it rubbed me the wrong way. But before I get into that, I'm curious, Hudson, what are your thoughts, man?
I mean, when I watched it, I said to myself, well, this like brought me to a similar situation with Biggie's daughter when we talked about her and how all these assumptions were made that that he that don't, nobody taught her right
Hmm.
and he must not. Why would you do that for a man that don't want to marry you and all that kind of mess? And I feel like a lot of these folk are just kind of flying off the handle with the accusations. I kind of think it's fair for him to say, why would you think I didn't talk to him?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you got people in there talking about, it's why he did, no, that's why can't stop whooping your kids, or that's why you can't do this. I mean, he addressed that. He said, I didn't gave him all the whoopings. I didn't did all this, and at some point, some people do just, you got to kind of let your kids go. So, they sometimes you just got to see, hey, sometimes they're going to do what they're going to do, and there's no stopping it. You kind of have to let them butt their heads on their own. So I think it was very fair what he said. And I think to have all those people in the peanut gallery, just kind of attacking as far as what he should do without, I mean, nobody knows him. They don't
Hmm.
know him. So how do they know he didn't do these things? So I think it was a fair video to say, I think he was real with it. It's kind of where I would have been in his position. Like, hey, whatever he did, look, I done already went through it with him. Now he's got to face the music.
Hmm. So I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think it's very irritating to have a bunch of people in your business trying to tell you about what kind of parent you should be and what you supposedly should be doing and all that kind of nonsense. So,
Well, you know what? I respect them for putting out the video
hmm.
because I mean he could have just said, screw all y'all. I'm not
Hmm.
going to. But the life of a celebrity, you get all this
Right,
kind of criticism. So I respect them for even putting it out there because
addressing
I
it.
would have been like, forget y'all.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that part of it. What I have an issue with, and it's not really that he directly said it, it's just the feeling I got watching the video. I, I kind of feel like T.I. is not being real about how his son is a reflection of him and the way that he's lived his life. He's kind of making it seem like, oh, my son is going off the deep end, and I don't know why he's doing all that. And if he does this, he gonna go to prison and yada yada yada. And I'm like, there's no acknowledgement there that he's doing all this because he's emulating you. I mean, King was born 2 years after T.I. had his first hit album. Like he came up right in the midst of when Ti was at his highest and also his most ghetto. Let's
Mhm,
keep it 1,000. Like I understand we have this more mature, refined version of Ti that, for the most part, doesn't get into trouble. I mean, some crazy stories came out about him, but but it's nothing like having a whole arsenal up in your car that the police catch you with, right? So there's a
mhm,
kind of a different version of Ti now that is not the version King Harris grew up with. And I feel like the way Ti addressed this doesn't really acknowledge that this boy is basically trying to be his father. And so that's part of the reason why I felt the need to talk about this, because you're right. People love being in the peanut gallery. They love throwing stones and telling folks what they should and should not do. But I feel like this situation is an opportunity for all fathers to look at themselves and say, what are the worst parts of me that I don't want my children to emulate? And really ask yourself the hard questions. Do I really need to work on changing these things to ensure I do not pass this down to my children? Like, there are some things about myself that I've decided, you know, I don't want to pass down, but they're also just my weaknesses. It's just not going to get any better. It just is what it is. But there are other things that I don't want to pass down that I've decided, no, I have a responsibility to work on this. Like, I feel like I have a responsibility to work on my weight, to be healthier, not only so I can be here for my daughter, but also so that, a lot of times when you heavy, your kids are heavy because they're emulating all your habits. They get comfortable with the same things you get comfortable with. And I feel like I have a responsibility not to do that to her, not to make her, 300 pounds when she's a teenager. And so, that's the way I felt looking at that. Like, you've got to be real with yourself about what do you want your children to see when they look at you, and what needs to change about yourself so that you're providing the best example you possibly can for your kids. And to me, looking at that video, I didn't get that sense from Ti. He is kind of like tried to make it seem all outside of himself. Like, I don't know why he keeps doing it. Like, I've done everything I can. Like, bro, come on, man, be real, be real.
well, I mean, I think, I think when you talk about, setting examples for your kids,
Mhm.
it's near impossible to set the right example in all the instances, right? Because we're not perfect.
Absolutely.
But I would say, because King Harris was about 5 when Ti was sentenced for that bunch of guns in the trunk,
Hmm.
and he had to serve like a year and a day, which I don't know how much he actually served. I think it was federal time, so I think you have to serve like what 85% of that at least.
Hmm.
I don't quite remember that those type of specifics, but I what I often think about is how is it that we can be real about who we were but not glorify it?
Hmm.
So like when you mention weight, right? It's one thing to let your daughter see you because my daughter sees me eat a ton of cake, or she sees me eat a bunch of chips, right? And she sees this. It's a difference between I'm eating this stuff, and there's a difference between I'm glorifying it. So I'm taking this big old hunk of steak and going, "Oh, it's so good." Oh, I'm telling you, feels good. Slumping down on the couch, like, oh, this is good. Unbuckling the belt, like. Yep, this is where I want to be right now, folks. So
Mhm.
there's a difference between I have a bad habit and I shouldn't have it, and I don't want my kids to have it, so I'm gonna try to talk them through it, as opposed to I have a bad habit and I'm glorifying it.
Mhm.
So if I was to make a comparison, I would make the comparison of Ti versus Jay Z.
Hmm.
So I think Jay Z is probably the perfect person. So when you think about it, you're not going to see him even back in 2008, 2007 when Ti got caught with those guns. Back then, you wasn't going to see Jay-Z caught with no guns in the trunk.
Yeah, no.
And Jay-Z, if you believe his music, believe the stories that's been told about him, he is
Mhm.
one he is one of the most hood dudes
Mhm.
that you can, I mean,
Mhm.
cooking on the stove, out there in the projects, middle of the
Right.
night, slinging to get that money to put that album out. But he put that side away.
Mhm.
And I'm willing to bet that if you just didn't know his background, didn't know anything, you would just think, oh, okay, the Jay Z is just an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Entrepreneur. You talk to him, you see him out. You don't get the sense of hood. Like you get the sense of a serious individual who's about his business. But you kind of see maybe there's like a 5% hood that you see there. But I struggle with that because I think that's just because I know what his background was. If
Right.
I had just met him today, didn't hear nothing else about him, it's just another businessman,
Right.
another entrepreneur. And I think that's the difference, right? I don't think Jay Z glorifies what he did.
Mhm.
And heck, we heard him on a verse of what God did. We heard him on that verse, and he talked all about it on that verse. It's like a 4-minute verse. He talked all about cooking on the stove and doing all that. He didn't glorify it. He
It's
did
just
not
part of his
glorify it.
history.
Now with Ti, you still see he seemed like that old uncle at the picnic who said, "Yeah, I work at the bank now, but boy, I
Back
was
in the
with
day.
I was with them hoes,
All right.
and
I mean,
he
he opened up the freaking trap museum. Like, come on now. This dude
yeah, yeah. I mean,
is
so
all about it.
clearly, if I didn't know anything about Ti, anything about his background, I would immediately see him. I did this a nigga that got some money,
Mhm.
but he hood. He got some hood in him, and he certainly proved it when he got caught with all those guns in the trunk. Because I remember when it happened, and I remember thinking, "Don't he got people that could get caught with them guns for him? Why is he the one driving them guns around?
Mhm.
Why is he with the guns?" So ain't he even back then? I'm like, ain't he big enough to be separated from that?
Yep.
But I guess he wasn't. So
Mhm. And now
so
his
yeah,
son's trying to do the same thing.
yeah. So I think that's the difference. And I think what we're looking for, because none of us are perfect, like I said, I think what we're looking for is that Jay Z type of response
Mhm.
versus that Jay Z's kids probably gonna turn out like Will Smith's kids
Right.
and be and be nothing
Right.
like right and nothing like what Jay Z was. And I
Mhm.
think that's what Jay Z was going for. But I don't think was going for that. So yeah, you're right. He's got blinders on. He's not admitting to to the example that he set for his son as the cause. That is the thing that he's not mentioning. It's not to say he doesn't behind closed doors say that, but that's doubtful. It's
And
doubtful. He
and
probably just
and
like you said.
and the reason why that really rubbed me the wrong way is because I feel like I see that in our communities all the time.
Yeah.
These older folks who point fingers at younger folks and
Yeah.
say they're not respectful the way we used to be, and they're not this and they're not that, with no acknowledgement how your influence is the reason why they're acting that way. You're trying to pretend that it's just some wild thing that happened outside of your home. No, it's because they were in your home that they
Yeah.
are acting the way that they are. And your inability to see that, to see that they're emulating you, for me, it's like, it's very difficult to
Yeah,
watch that because it does not serve us. It does not serve us. It doesn't serve the child either. For you to try to pretend that they're not essentially an extension of you when they clearly are.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's a problem with taking responsibility all the way around when you talk to whether it's an absentee father who says, "Hey, hey, I buy my son shoes and do this and do that,"
Mhm.
but he ain't showing up to any basketball games. He ain't taking the kids to school. He ain't doing none of that. He ain't making no lunches.
No.
So,
Mhm.
but he's not going to claim to be the reason that his
Mhm.
kids end up in a tough spot if they end up there, right? He's not going to claim that. He's going to say that's the mother's fault. She raised him,
Right.
right? He gonna be quick to say
Right.
that then, right? He was
Mhm.
with his mama, so his mama should have handled that. So we have a problem with taking responsibility as parents. Heck, in our last episode, we talked about uh Tiffany Haddish and Ari Spears.
Mhm.
And I specifically said, mother gotta take some blame in that. You don't let your kids with some comedians and film a skit, and you have no clue. You have no script. You
Right.
you you have
Got
no
no
one
clue what they're
there.
doing.
You have no one there advocating for the child at all. You just
Mhm.
have nothing. So you don't know what's going on, but you let your kid go there and film with these people. Who knows
Mhm.
what could have happened.
Yeah.
So and someone was in our comments on the YouTube channel saying, well, you putting all the blame on the mama. I said, no,
Mhm.
no, I'm just saying the only person not to blame in that situation was the child.
Right.
The only person in that situation not to blame.
Right.
We as parents have to understand that these kids are our responsibility. Period.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Period. And any way they turn out, that goes back to something we did.
Mhm.
And we can try to pretend we were perfect. Hey, even for those who say, hey, I don't know why my kid turned out this way. I had them in the best schools.
Mhm.
I had some money, so I never, they never had to struggle, never had to do this. So I don't know why they're doing that. It goes back to you in some way, some failure you had there. And we have to be able to open ourselves up to understand that we're not perfect. We're gonna
Mhm.
fail. And the only way we get better is to acknowledge those failures and move forward.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. Absolutely. And I hope, everyone who has children, but especially fathers, as fathers, we should
Hmm.
be thinking about, you know, when we all have weaknesses and you
Yeah.
have to consider whether what impact those weaknesses are potentially going to have on your child.
Touch. Touch. Say it.
Hey, if you've made it this far, clearly you like the video. Go ahead, hit that like button for us and go ahead and subscribe. We definitely love to see you again on the channel. We're going to be dropping these videos on a steady basis. Take care. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our next topic, which is this crazy, crazy exodus we're seeing of aldermen. And it might not be over. There might be more people who announce that they are not going to seek reelection. But thus far, I think it's been 13 aldermen who have basically said, hey, I'm not going to be running for reelection. And three of them have done it because they are going to try to run for mayor, but the rest of them, they're just backing away. Some because they're in legal trouble, like it was Proco Joe, but others, I think they just don't want to have to go through the rigmarole of the election cycle and trying to hang on to the seat. But 13 new aldermen after the election, that could potentially be a major, major change for the city depending on who gets in those seats. Hudson, you got any thoughts?
Look here, this is the highest turnover in 80 years from what I've seen and read. Actually, I wasn't here 80 years ago to see it, but when you have this many aldermen cutting out, look, you gonna hear some things and read some things about this alderman job, 70 hours, 80 hours a week. Trust me, I don't think my alderman's putting in 70 hours, 80 hours a week. Look, alderman is one of those jobs that you make it what it is. You know,
Hmm.
you make it 70, 80 hours if you really have a passion for doing good in the community. I think others are spending 20 hours maybe a week with this
Maybe.
thing.
Hmm.
So when you consider that's happening sometimes, and when you think about, they get the pay and they get the cushy status, because alderman is a cushy status in this city.
Hmm.
um and when I mean cushy, there's lots of kickbacks, there's lots of little shady backdoor behind the scenes stuff that goes on.
It's a
and it,
great
and
way to
it's
enrich yourself.
it's amazing how some aldermen try to call it out, as if they're not a part of it. It's like one ghetto person calling another ghetto person, "Hey, yo, ghetto ass." It's like, why are two stupid people calling each other dumb? Like, why do you do that, right?
Mhm.
And so I gotta think that this exodus is happening strictly because there's one or two reasons. The first reason I can come up with is that the feds are getting close to indicting a bunch of people and they are trying to cut bait and run. That is my first thought. My second thought is, and I wouldn't normally think this as a thought to leave a job such as this, but my second thought is that they just can't take Lightfoot.
Mhm.
That is my second thought. And the shouting matches back and forth, the the butting heads, the tension that has been notoriously reported during Lightfoot's tenure.
Mhm.
I can't help but think that whatever is going on behind the scenes, that is beginning to get too much. It's beginning to get too much for people, and so I I would not have normally thought that. I would have thought that maybe they would just do a big campaign to try to get her voted out, but it seems to be enough to just, I just want to walk away. And the reason I think this could be the case is because, well, a couple of them are thinking about running for mayor. Like
Mhm.
they're supposedly still making the decision, but they still said they're not seeking reelection to be an alderman. And so I'm like, well,
Regardless. Mhm.
so you don't want to get out of public service, so to speak. You just want to leave this spot. Why?
Mhm.
Question is why. So I might be leaning towards this is a Lightfoot issue and not an indictment coming down. Of course, I still think that's a good chance too.
That's always a possibility. I mean, Jason Irving, Alderman Jason Irving, I think is the only member of the city council that I've heard about who like really gets along well with her. Lightfoot notoriously has not really made connections, has not really built up a network, and is disliked by the majority of people that she works with. Now, that's not necessarily a big deal, especially when you're mayor of Chicago. The Dailies were disliked by uh, a lot of people throughout the city. Same with Rahm Emanuel, I'm sure. But the difference with them is they were all known for competency. And
Mm.
so that dislike was balanced against their ability to get things done.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I would venture to say Lightfoot, throughout her 4 years, hasn't really demonstrated competency. And she she's generated a lot of dislike amongst people, but not really fear. It's not
Mhm.
like they really feel like, okay, this is someone who could politically destroy me, because she's got so much power and so many connections. Like, she hasn't really built that up. She only has the structure that she's just walked into. She hasn't really created anything herself out of it. And so I don't know, it's weird to me that it would cause this mass exodus, because frankly, a lot of the aldermen give as good as they get. So it's not
Right.
like they've been punching bags for Lightfoot. Like some of those council meetings, the exchanges happening back and forth between her and the aldermen were crazy. Like it almost made me wonder, why are you coming back to the mayor's seat? Like, these people can't stand you, know what you're gonna get. But yeah, it's just my main thought about this is just, wow, how incredible would it be if you could get just a whole new wave of thinking coming into our local government that could
Yep.
really change the way Chicago operates
Yep.
in a manner that, again, we haven't seen. When you think about it, again, this hasn't happened since the 80s. That means for the vast majority of the dailies run, and let's be honest, a lot of what's going on in Chicago right now is really built off what the dailies have done. Nobody's really come in and said, you know what, maybe there's a different way that this city can operate. And this is the first time that it really felt like, wow, we might be trying to change that and do something different. I got to be honest with you. I think it's very exciting, but at the same time, I think what the problem is a lot of times the mayor has his or her handpicked candidates. And those are the candidates that they get more money, they get more push, they have more people working for them. So technically, this is an opportunity for a whole new wave of thinking and a whole new batch of people to come in and potentially alter how Chicago works. But in reality, it could be a fantastic opportunity for Lightfoot to do a power grab and basically say, okay, in all these areas, who is my person that I know is going to do everything that I want them to and is going to work with me? All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get this person elected. And so, it only works when it's coupled with a Chicago population that is paying attention to what is going on and has decided they're going to be invested in who is going to represent them.
Hmm. Well, it's going to be very interesting to see some of these campaign ads because are you gonna? I mean, how are you gonna react? Because there's, to me, even at this early stage, there's a great chance that Lightfoot is not reelected at this
Maybe,
point.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it might shore up better as we go, but we're gonna start seeing ads coming out soon, and and we're gonna have interviews and discussions coming out. How are they gonna approach the, working with Lightfoot angle? Because that
Mhm.
is going to be something that any reporter worth their salt is going to want to know. I mean, with all the exodus, I'm sure it's constantly asked, "Are you leaving because of Lori? I mean,
Right.
is that why you're going?" And
Right.
then for the people who are going to be coming in, I mean, those people that's going to be uh, 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 possibly elected, who are going to be new, who are going to want to hit the ground running. Are they going to use that as a springboard? Are they
Right.
going to be, I'm not going to let Lightfoot push me around. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all works out because it's, what are they going to run on? I'm sure crime is going to be one that so many are going to attack in this one because as much as Lightfoot keeps touting these numbers that all these violent crimes are down, it definitely does not feel like it. And I
Nobody
have
feels safer.
yeah, I haven't looked at the statistics, but other people have, and let me say I have not done my personal review on these statistics, but a lot of people are coming out with statistics that suggest that it's actually different, suggest that during her tenure, she is not actually improving crime one bit. That the that the significant drops in crime and violent crime happened over a span of years where she was not in office. So she's
Mhm.
still benefiting from that by saying that crime is down. So I don't know.
Um,
I can't confirm those stats one way or another. But
right.
definitely, like you said, it doesn't feel any safer.
No.
So I'm not,
But but I will say I feel like it's not a fair critique of hers. And again, this is somebody who's not particularly a Lightfoot fan, do not plan to vote for her. But for any major city, honestly, if we're going to talk about crime statistics for the past 4 years, you got to talk about COVID and the pandemic and the summer of heist that we've experienced across the country. I think it would be extremely difficult for any mayor to figure out how to deal with that situation. And while I do feel like Lightfoot handled the pandemic poorly in several aspects, I don't feel like it's fair to put it on her that, hey, crime hasn't improved under your watch. Like, how many mayors have had to deal with a situation to this extreme? And how many of them were really armed with the tools to be able to really combat crime in this type of situation where you have whole swaths of people that are out of work with no sign of restitution coming anytime soon?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a fair assessment, but is it an assessment that the people are going to go for? Is the question. It's one of those things where you know I, when I look back on it, did she have a good plan to begin with? Her
Mhm.
hiring of what Superintendent Brown is it?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
That was definitely very questionable when that happened, and
What is
and
people's issue with Brown? Like, I've never read up on the guy. Like, I don't understand why folks are so down on him, besides folks just being down on cops in general. But it seems kind of like both sides, even the sides that usually side with cops, don't like him as well.
Well, what I noticed first off, right, when he first got here, and they were touting how he was going to bring this great mind to the issues of
I remember
crime
that.
and come up
Hmm.
with all these fancy solutions, unique solutions to solve these problems, right? But then when the first holiday weekend came under his watch, the first thought was we're just going to put more police on every corner to make sure nothing happens. That was the big idea. Let's
Hmm.
bring more police in here and drop them on every corner in the city, right? And it seems to be their idea on every major holiday. And now we get all these complaints about officers not getting days off, which I think is a shitty way to treat your officers, a
I
crappy
agree
way. And
wholeheartedly.
I'm no friend of the way the police operate, but it's in everyone's best interest that they get their days off. It's in everyone's best interest that they get a chance to be with their families on holidays. It's just not enough that you give them their days off eventually,
Hmm.
right? Because they're making that claim too. They do get their days off. It's not enough.
Yeah,
If none of those officers can be with their families on Christmas Day, I have a problem with that. I
yeah.
have a problem with that. So that's something that needs to be corrected, right? But to go back into it, it just seemed at the end of the day he had no real answers for I would consider him like a temporary superintendent of like he's the guy you put there just to kind of hold it down for a minute. He's like
Why
the
you get somebody
substitute
who really
teacher
understands the
while you
job?
get a real person to take the job. And then it goes, why would we bring this guy all the way here just to hold the job down temporarily? You
Right.
know, so I don't seem to see that he has like you say, the respect of the people around him, the respect of people who actually seem to like the police. Nor do I see he really has the respect of the police.
Right.
It just doesn't. I just don't get that impression. So all in all, that makes him an ineffective leader.
Hmm.
And so I think Lightfoot's choice in that. While I think it's a great thought to search outside of Chicago for your superintendent for obvious reasons,
Yeah.
obvious at least to us in Chicago. Um, I just don't think the choice she made was a good one.
Hmm.
So I will again. It will be very interesting what Lightfoot's plan is during her reelection, and we're kind of going off subject of the aldermans here, it's going to be
Hmm.
interesting to see what her plans are and if they're going to include Superintendent Brown. Because if it was me, they wouldn't include him, you know.
Hmm.
But I, you know, but it seems like people do not want to admit that they made a mistake in something.
Hmm.
So she's going to roll with them. And I think that's definitely going to hurt her a little.
I think she should roll with him because at the end of the day, I feel like everything he's done is considered to be coming down from her anyway. So it's not like cutting him loose really makes you look better because all people are going to say is, oh, you're making him the fall guy for all the decisions you were making anyway. So I think she's kind of just stuck with the anchor of everything that's been happening with the police department, especially since her relationship with police leaders has been so poor, especially that union leader guy. I can't even remember his name right now, but they can't stand her. So I feel like she might as well just decide I'm just going to have to try to figure out how to get elected, even though all these people hate me. So,
Well, when you circle back around and you talk about the the pandemic being hard on Lightfoot, so now we can say that equally for these aldermen,
oh,
right?
yeah.
The pandemic's been hard on them, and remember, we have many vacant spots within the police department, and it's not to say that we need those spots filled, but we definitely need them, I guess, for the plan or makeshift plan that the police department has in policing our city. So
Yeah.
for them, those missing spots are paramount,
Hmm.
right? And so you got to think that in a lot of these districts that these aldermen are feeling that. So
Hmm.
they're left and right. Even though aldermen are not specifically responsible for police response within the city, it's
People
something that
blame
I'm
them.
sure people
Mhm.
are asking them about. Hey, can you get more police here? Can you get these crimes solved? Can you get all this stuff? And
Mhm.
but to go back to your point of this could be these aldermen leaving could like be just a great thing for us as far as just starting fresh with fresh blood on the whole city council. We got aldermen leaving places that are food deserts.
Right.
We have one alderman who's leaving who who's the alderman of that ward, where 87th Street and 87th and State near the Dan Ryan, where
Mhm.
that Walmart, he constantly touts how he fought for that Walmart on 83rd and Stewart to be built. But we
Mhm.
got this food desert going on. There's many
Mhm.
problems in that area that need to be solved. Thank you
That
for that
Walmart
Walmart.
can't solve.
But that Walmart didn't solve the tons of issues that are going on over there, right?
Mhm.
So we got tons of these areas that with aldermen who really didn't have much response or much plans to take care of it. I don't see aldermen out here connecting with the people. All these programs that you might see on their website are 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 done by third parties who really they had little to no involvement with these programs. They're just
Yeah.
showcasing them on their website to make it look good, right?
Mhm.
They're not beating the streets. They're not going out and really taking control of their community to
Connecting.
rally them into one direction or the other. So, and that happens when you have a bunch of incumbent people. They already know who to go to get reelected.
Mhm.
They already know which pasture I need to visit,
Right.
which Ebenezer church I need to go to and visit and make sure they tell their constituents to
Mhm.
vote for them. So, this is going to be great. New blood, they have to go the extra mile to try to build those relationships, which means that you might actually get some people who are actually for the people.
We'll see. We'll see. I certainly hope so, and it's going to be something to monitor in the times to come. But I did want to take the opportunity to focus in on one of the aldermen who has made it clear she will not be seeking re-election and instead is going to try to run for mayor against Lori Lightfoot. Alderman Sophia King. who's a person that I'm not really crazy familiar with, but I know she leads a progressive caucus here in Chicago. And so she definitely has been fighting for progressive policies regarding, minimum wage and various issues regarding policing in the city, equity, things of that nature. So, a lot of stuff that I like to hear, but at the same time, do I feel like she actually has a chance against Lightfoot? That's a very good question, Hudson. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think a little bit about Sophia King. She's the fourth ward alderman, right? And if you look at that fourth ward map, which I'm gonna put a link to it in the description for people to see, that fourth ward map is crazy. That fourth ward map is just insane with the demographics of the population that exist within that ward. That ward stretches from like North Kenwood all the way to Hyde Park. So it's
Mm,
covering areas where it's white people, Hispanic people, areas with richer people, more well-to-do people, poor people. It's crazy how diverse her ward is, which almost makes her the perfect candidate to to
mm,
kind of run this city with how diverse and how segregated this city is. Her ward is highly segregated,
mhm,
with what's going on. Um, so I definitely don't have any reservations on that. Now, does she have a chance to beat Lightfoot? I think the problem stems from is that she does not have an extensive background of holding office, which to me is not a bad thing. I think that helps in the fact that the person actually running for the top spot in this city is actually a person of the people and a little bit more down to earth. I think when you're a lifetime politician, I think that for me, that goes against you. Right? That's a check against you because
mhm.
that just says to me status
You've
quo.
been a part of the problem.
Yeah, right. Right. You can't sit here and say that was part of my problem, even though I thought Biden was the best choice for president against the other guy.
Mhm,
That's part of my problem was with Biden being there is that, he's at what point do you say you're part of the problem when
mhm.
the country's been in the toilet for I don't know how long, right? But now you come along, you're going to be the one to to
Make
bring it
everything
out.
better.
You know, Trump wasn't the one that made everything bad. Like he
Mhm.
highlighted a bunch of bad things.
Right.
It was already there.
Right.
Trump just,
Brought it to the surface.
he just helped to bring more of it to the surface. That's all he did. But that's
Mhm.
how Trump won. That's how
Yeah.
Trump won as the guy who's not been a part of the system,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
I mean,
He was
frankly,
able
that's
to,
how Lightfoot won.
so in that respect, with I think what's going to hurt Sophia King is, and to make clear, her platform's not out there yet.
Right.
She just made the announcement maybe a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago, I believe. I can't quite remember. But she does not have a plan up and running yet as far as what her platform is and how she's going to address the concerns of the city. So I don't know, but I have a feeling that whatever she comes up with safety wise, I just don't think people are going to like it.
Mhm.
I think even those who tout themselves as being, liberal and wanting to see a different type of police department are going to balk at it.
Mhm.
And I think partially it's going to be because this whole crime is out of control angle is going to be pushed hard. And so whoever is put in office is likely going to be considered the best person to take care of that. Right. So we reviewed Frederick Collins last week, right? Um, you could probably consider him the person who's going to be trying to knock heads out there. He's probably going to give the police just carte blanche to do whatever they want, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think anybody really wants that, at least not to that extreme, right? They're
Mm.
going to want someone kind of in the middle. And I don't think Sophia King fits that. I don't think she will. So I think that's going to be very tough on her to to kick Lori Lightfoot out of office on this.
So I would have to agree with you. I think especially white folks here, and more so the state. It's kind of hard. You have to differentiate between white folks in Illinois and white folks in Chicago because they're very very different. Like white folks in Illinois can't stand Kim Fox,
Mm,
but at the same time, Kim Fox has been able to keep her job, which says
mhm,
that white folks in Chicago are cool with her, at
mhm,
least some of them. So I think it's I think it'll be interesting to see what is the reaction to people regarding crime here in the city. Because I think the sentiment is so strong against Lightfoot overall that even though she is technically more pro police and tough on the crime, I don't think it helps her. So I agree that it's a weak point of Sophia King, but not with Lightfoot, because I think Lightfoot is so disliked that it doesn't really matter. But it could be an issue with other candidates that are running that are considered stronger possibilities because they are going to be tougher on crime. That's going to be something interesting to see. Um, Alderman Jason Irvin made comments saying that essentially Sophia King was going to split up the black vote and that there were too many black people running, which first and foremost for the brother who leads the black caucus
mm.
to publicly say that
There's
hey,
too many black
there's
candidates.
too many black folks running for mayor. Y'all should all
Mm,
just fall back and let Lightfoot hold it. That's crazy in and of itself.
crazy talk.
The fact that the leader of the Black Caucus is essentially Lori Lightfoot's water boy is also insane to me. Insane. Lightfoot, who has done zero, zilch for the Black community, gets the full throated support of our Black caucus, has done nothing for us. And that in and of itself tells you everything you need to know about the state of Chicago and the state of the Black community in Chicago. Now, I do feel like, well, yeah, I'll take it back. I do see his point, right? That Lightfoot basically came in on a wave of support from, white liberals and black women. Black women were huge supporters of her. I don't think Sophia King is the one who's taking that support away. I think Lightfoot did that herself when she had that sister standing up naked around all those police officers and didn't punish those police officers properly.
Mhm.
I think that did a lot of damage to her reputation among black women in the city. Black men already didn't get down with her for a multitude of reasons. I voted for Lightfoot, but now after seeing the decisions she's made, I'm not with her. So, she didn't have black men to begin with. But I think her decision making has lost her a lot of support among black women. That being said, there is definitely still a strong corner of black women in the city who just want to see a sister in the position. And despite any issues they have with Lightfoot's decision making, they're just going to vote for her because, hey, I'm tired of seeing old white men being able to step into this role and stomp all over the black community. If somebody's going to be stomping all over the community, I'd rather it be a black woman. I don't know how big that quadrant is, though. I don't think it's really enough. It's certainly not enough to make a real impact in this election. So for Alderman Jason to step out publicly and make this comment about Sophia King, and he's essentially almost saying that because of your skin color, you owe it to Lightfoot to stay out of the race. It's just wild to me. It's just crazy wild to me and shows you the state of our politics.
I'm gonna say this, and it's tough for me to say I don't want to believe it. I really don't. But you when they elected Lori Lightfoot, they elected a black woman, a lesbian woman. So let me say they voted in a woman,
Mhm.
they voted in a lesbian,
Mhm.
they voted in a black person,
Mhm.
right? So now we have seen when folk in this country, you know, vote in what they feel to be extreme, what they feel to be extreme
Mhm.
inclusiveness. We saw it with Obama.
Mhm.
They feel a need to go so far to the other end,
Mhm.
right? So my fear is that, and not because there's too many black people running, not because of that. I don't think that's going to be it at all. Because the herd is going to thin,
Mhm.
right? We're going to see just like uh uh candidates are going to fall out, and they're going to go and put their endorsement into other candidates that remain, right? It happens every time. I think it's going to happen this time. So that the herd is going to thin, right? So it's not going to be the amount it is now today. But you know, my fear is that we go and they find some Trump like dude, at least the Chicago version, because, we don't go full Republican. We just go,
Yeah.
that them publicans, that's what I call them. we
Mhm.
we go that route, those Republicans who try to act like that they're Democrats. So
See,
that's my fear here.
I'm not worried about that. And the reason why I'm not worried about that is that Kim Fox won re-election. And I'd argue Kim Fox way more hated than Lightfoot. That demographic you're talking about, who is concerned about too much diversity, about things being too black, and about too much being done for black folks, they hate Kim Fox way more than they hate Lightfoot, in my personal opinion. Like I've had a couple, like even when I just mention her name on Twitter, like throw it out there, and I'm a nobody, right? I have like zero followers. I get a ton of comments back from this whole long list of white folks with their little flags trying to convince me that Kim Fox is the worst thing that has ever happened to the city. She still won. So to me, it kind of shows that demographic, while they may love to scream and love to talk, don't really hold much power in this city. Like the folks who hold power in this city are the ones who are concerned with business and money. That's why Rahm Emanuel was able to win as many times as he wanted to. And so the question is, do they feel like Lightfoot is good for business? And I'd argue that's what she really has to prove because, from my perspective, she's incompetent. It's one thing if you do things that I don't like you doing, right? Like, I can't stand Mitch McConnell. I can't stand the things he's done in Congress. There is no question the effectiveness of him as a conservative Republican leader. He gets things done. Horrible, evil things from my perspective, but he gets them done. Lightfoot, even the things that she wants to do, even the things that she's like, hey, I feel like this will be really good for the police force. I feel like this will be really good for the city. She can't pull together the support to actually get it done. And she keeps getting embarrassed left and right. If I own a business that really requires the full support of the mayor and her ability to get the city council to stand behind the objectives I need them to do, that's very disconcerting for me.
Mhm.
It's difficult to watch you fumble around and not being able to get these things across the table. And so I feel like that's the group that is really going to pull together and say, nah, it's got to be somebody else. These folks who hate diversity, I don't feel like they really have the power to put in the kind of candidate that they want to see. Because you talk about those Trump guys get no play in Chicago. Even Illinois in general, to be honest with you, you look at this Darren Bailey guy. This Darren Bailey guy looks like he's on his way to getting absolutely trounced because he keeps getting on the microphone and saying Trump like things. But it's very few people who can bottle up that Trump magic and just reproduce it. You can't just regurgitate the same things that Trump says. Like there's a whole aura and vibe that comes along with Trump that really nobody else is able to create, but they keep trying. And it's not working with that population that loves Trump so much.
Well, I mean, I think it's while it'll be similar, I think to them trying to go completely opposite and get Trump. It definitely wouldn't happen in the same exact way. And those people who are in power who will try to get somebody who will play ball with them, you know, they're gonna get someone who more than likely I'm just gonna say it looks like them,
Mhm.
and I just and it's not enough of the black people who are in power. It's not enough Willie Wilsons there to get somebody in there that looks like them, right? I
Mhm.
just don't think it is, and I think they go the opposite route, and I think we get another Rahm Emanuel, we get another,
Yeah.
and it's gonna suck to me. Um, but I'm still not sure that it will suck as much as having Lightfoot in charge these past. I mean, what
Probably
can you
not.
do? So I
Probably
don't know,
not.
man. I'm torn, but as far as like I said, we talked about Frederick Collins before,
Mhm.
um, and now we're talking about Sophia King. If it came down to those two, Sophia King all the way has my vote.
No question about it.
Yeah.
No question about it. Yeah.
And
It'll
she has my vote over Lightfoot. I'm just gonna say it. But
Mhm.
now who I ultimately vote for at the time, the only thing I can promise you right now, it won't be Lightfoot. It's the only
Right.
thing I can promise you.
Right.
And it
Same
won't
here.
be Frederick Collins. If it comes down to those two, I see no real difference. I'm not voting for either one, honestly. I see no real difference,
Mhm.
so
Absolutely.
that's my
Absolutely.
thought on it.
It'll be interesting to watch and see what other aldermen step up and say that they want to either run for mayor or that, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It could very well be more than 13 aldermen when election time comes around that will end up being replaced. So exciting times, exciting, interesting times in Chicago.
Well, another thing, just a quick blurb. I noticed they're not stepping down right now.
Hmm.
They're waiting out the term, and that says a lot. That says a lot because uh, s- they're not even waiting. So they're not even giving Lightfoot her
The
chance to
opportunity.
replace them
Hmm.
temporarily
Hmm.
to end up running. And that has happened numerous times in the past with other mayors.
Hmm.
Here, folks saying, I'm gonna finish out the term.
Yep.
So that is a telling sign, but I'm gonna let it go at that.
Absolutely.
Hey folks, just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen so far, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you can be notified on the next episode. All right. Thank you.